Welcome back. Now, on Thursday's State of the Nation address, President Ramaphosa spoke about a child named Tintswalo, born in 1994, symbolizing the transformation of South Africa's society since the dawn of democracy. However, the president's story about Tintswalo has sparked mixed reactions. Let's unpack this further as we're joined in studio by Collen Malatji, ANC Youth League President. Collen, thank you so much for joining us at News at Prime. The buzzword Tintswalo, mixed reactions. Now, there are those who are saying that, look, this story does exist for many South Africans. However, the story that President Cyril Ramaphosa placed of Tintswalo is actually the exception to the rule. In fact, the majority of Tintswalos in this country, that is not the reality that they face, that the president outlined. Just unpack, who is Tintswalo, and do you acknowledge that she is, or he is, the exception and not the rule?
Look, what we need to clarify is that it is not true that in the past 30 years of democracy, since the ANC has been in power, the ANC has done nothing for South Africans. Tintswalo is a good example of what the ANC has done. You know, the ANC since 1994 was able to build as many houses as possible where there were no houses. They were able to take a child from deep rural areas of Venda, from primary school to secondary to university, without paying any cent. Those are interventions of the ANC. Now, before 1994, those interventions were not there. You know, the ANC was able to. I know a lot of opposition leaders that are saying the ANC has done nothing. I can give you an example. Second chance program of matriculants. People like Steenhuisen can be able to benefit from it themselves. You know, those are open processes of those who have not been there. The other leader of the opposition, Julius, when everyone was making fun of him that has failed woodwork, the ANC policies and government was able to create a program of exemption for him to go to, now he's got a degree or an honors studying. Now, I'm saying those are practical living examples of the policies of the ANC, that they don't only touch people that are not known, but they also touch even those that are in opposition parties, those who are in the ruling party, those who are in government. Now, the ANC government has done a lot for South Africans, and Tintswalo is a good example of that, of the work that has been done, the social grants, interventions in our communities, the infrastructure. We've built schools where there were no schools, we've put water where there was no water, we've put electricity where there was no electricity. We've built 2 universities, the University of Mpumalanga and the University in Northern Cape.
Do you think that's impressive, though, Collen, that in 30 years you've built 2 universities, considering the plight of university students or those who would like to be university students in this country?
Including the TVETs. Look, more can be done. I think we must agree that more can be done. The ANC arrived at a time where, when supposed to address many other issues, we arrived at the time where there was a high level of inequality in South Africa. You know, the budget was split. The majority of the population are dependent on the minorities to taxpayers' money to run. Now, the base was too small. And I believe that if you address the issues of high level of inequalities and you restructure the economy to benefit the majority of South Africans, we can do more. The budget that's supposed to go to social grants can go to building more universities, can go to building more schools. Look, there's a big demand for TVET colleges. There's a big demand for serious interventions that must be done. Now, with that small budget that we have, that we're dependent on to address many socio-economic challenges that were created by injustice of the past, the ANC was able to intervene in those areas.
But also, the ANC has also exacerbated those challenges of the past. Because let's talk about the reality as well, going back to Tintswalo. The reality is that there's up to 70% chance that she would be unemployed in this current economy. There's up to a 50% chance that she'd be living under the poverty line. There is a chance that she'd be one of 115 people who is murdered in this country, or one of the 115 people who's raped, 75 people who's murdered, and one of the 115 women who is raped or murdered in this country. That's the reality. Now, Collen, as the youth league of the mother organization, the ANC, isn't it up to people like you to represent the true tale of Tintswalo and speak to the governing and your mother body to say that let's not paint this rosy picture. Let's be frank and honest with South Africans.
Look, the honesty is that the ANC has done more for South Africans, but more must be done. The Youth League has said that. The Youth League has declared an unemployment of youth that is less than South Africa. If you've been following us, we're very hard on. We even came up with solutions. We went forward to tell the president that the most important thing that we must do on urgent basis is to put export quotas so that our raw materials are utilized to revive the secondary and the tertiary industry so the youth can participate, whether it's employment or business opportunities. Because, look, it doesn't make sense. I fully agree with you. It doesn't make sense that we can pride ourselves and say we've put so many people in schools. But if you want to put them in the streets, into crime, into being abused and all of those things, it will not assist. Now, the immediate intervention, the ANC acknowledges that crime is a big issue in South Africa. Gender-based violence is a big issue in South Africa. Even the president said it yesterday.
He talked about a pledge. He said he went to a school, it was a high school, where he got an idea for young boys that men of this country should sign a pledge. Now, this is almost a spit in the face when we consider the commitments that he made about gender-based violence in previous State of the Nation addresses. Now we have diminished it to a pledge.
No, look, I think what he's trying to do is trying to mobilize society that is not only an issue of government alone to address the issue of gender-based violence. Look, boys are raised in communities, are raised by human beings, male and female, where there's not even government in most cases. Now, we need to educate the youth, especially the male boys, that abuse is a bad thing to do. You know, you can't be doing that. We need to treat women as human beings that you live in society. Now, part of the social ills that we're faced with, not only government can resolve it, you need all stakeholders to be involved. We need partners, we need parents. That's why parents must play a full role in school governing bodies. We need community forums to deal with this issue. Issue of drugs is a big issue in South Africa, you know. No matter even if you can put 100 police everywhere, if communities don't unite, because community members, they know these people are selling drugs. Some of them are their brothers and sisters. It starts there. Now, the president was calling upon South Africans to unite, to fight against the social ills that are facing South Africans, because you can put as many projects as possible in place, but if you don't address the issues in place of partnership, of everyone being involved, you'll still have the same problems moving forward.
And I hear you, and I do agree that it can't be just placed on government, but the community needs to get involved as well. But when you have an ineffective and a weak law enforcement and criminal justice system, do you blame community members who don't out these drug dealers? Because once they do out them, they do get arrested and then they get released on bail and they're sent back to those communities to terrorize them. So would you blame community members who then rather turn a blind eye because they see that there are no repercussions? Had this ANC government actually fixed the law problem that we have of lawlessness, then we wouldn't be sitting with this problem.
You know, the biggest problem where I agree with you on is that we need to build a police force that puts South Africa first. That is number one. It must be a service. It must be serving. It must not be just a duty and the policeman must go to work and get paid. It must be something that you put your country first. Because I always mention this point, that every time a corrupt policeman takes money from a drug lot, is killing many families, including their own kids, because some of their kids end up smoking drugs. And we acknowledge that one of the biggest problems that has made our people to lose confidence in the system, it is the level of corruption that is happening in areas where they must be protected. And we acknowledge that, and as the Youth League was saying, that we want to join hands with everyone to fight that. We're not saying it's not happening, it's happening. And we live in communities, we see it every day, where there's high level of corruption happening at the lower level of police taking money from drug lords or showing a blind eye to crime and all of those things. And also, you know, maybe it's our cultural democracy. You know, in South Africa, you are innocent until proven guilty. And that is one of the things, that you're not guilty until proven innocent. You're innocent. Sometimes it takes long. The justice system takes long. That's how our constitution is drafted and our democracy is drafted. And those are some of the things I think communities must engage on finding a better solution, because everyone has got a right in South Africa. That's the painful part. Even criminals have got rights in South Africa. Now, those are areas that I think we need to speak out on. We must call in visors and speak, and communities must shape the kind of a constitution that they want, that believes that will move the country moving forward.
That's been done time and time again with different ministers of police who have again and again been ANC members. Now, as the Youth League, I mean, surely you have access to a Bigitele, the Minister of Police, for instance. If you are really serious about the levels of crime that are affecting not only everyone in this country, but also particularly the youth who find themselves unemployed as well, what are your discussions with the Minister of Police? Should you have access to him? I'm presuming you would.
Look, I do have access to the Minister of Police. We serve in the same NEC. As you said, I'm the Youth League of the ruling party. Now, look, we're clear on crime. That we need more police and police stations almost everywhere. And we need more stakeholder engagements to play a role. A lot of youth must come into the force to assist the process. Crime affects everyone.
When you say this to the minister, what responses do you get?
Look, we get commitment. There's a commitment that is made that in these coming years, the financial is over 10,000 police force that will be brought into the system. Now, those are kind of the progress that I'm speaking about, that want those actions to be done. But I can tell you now, you can hire as many police as possible. If they're not conscious enough to put South Africa first is the problem. And that's why we made a call many years ago that the first thing that we need to do, everyone after matric must be taught how to be a good South African. You know, so that everyone knows that to be a South African, you must first serve and put your country first. But at the top of the agenda of all of these things is that we need to address the high level of unemployment. We need to reopen our factories. We need to reopen. Our raw materials must remain in the country to assist to revive the economy of the country. And you address that, I can tell you you've addressed the 70% of your problems. Because some of the problems, we need to reskill the youth. The youth of South Africa must be kept busy. There's a skills budget that must be put everywhere. Reskill the youth. Their skills must respond to the economic demand of the country. We've made a pronouncement of that. Or from El Khokla of the ANC and the government of Khokla, there's a commitment on the reskilling of the youth to align them to that. Now, all the youth must be in skills programs. No one must be roaming around the streets not doing anything. Youth must be in sports. Youth must be in skills programs. Every program of youth in South Africa must be supported. And we would have resolved some of the problems.
Now, I just want to go back to the education factor because that's a huge thing for the youth as well. It's already devastating enough that there are some who manage to get through higher education, who manage to get their degrees. As we speak right now, we've got unemployed doctors, graduates sitting at home who aren't placed in our hospitals which need them, not because they're not good enough, but because the Department of Health is unable to place them and is unable to deal with the volumes as well. According to the NSFAS CEO, last year, he had a parliamentary briefing where he said Treasury has cut the budget for NSFAS by 10%. Now, this amounts to about 30 billion, and it will affect about 87,000 students just this year who will not get funding, an additional 87,000, and next year that number goes up to 120,000 just based off these budget cuts on NSFAS. Now, if we talk about Tintswalo and all these amazing opportunities that we have, yet we are in this government that's cutting the budget for the NSFAS scheme that is greatly needed by a majority of people in this country.
Two things. We don't agree with the cutting of budget of NSFAS. Instead, we've made our statements, if you're following us, we're in loggerheads with the Minister of Finance. We fight every day about the matter. We're not going to only fight that. We're organizing one of the biggest marches to the Department of Treasury. Also organizing a march, the same march to the JSE, because we need the private partnerships. Private sector must come and play a role. They're making a lot of money in this country. They must also contribute towards the education of the youth of South Africa. We're also marching to the Department of Health, because it doesn't make sense that we have shortage of doctors in clinics and in primary health care and hospitals, and we're told today that there's no placement of doctors. We'll never accept that. And as the youth league, we have a clear position on that. We're not accepting that. We've told the president that something must be done urgently. I saw in Limpopo already they're trying to act to start to place them. We're saying all the provinces must follow suit. Now, we're not always agreeing with certain things that are pronounced by ministers. Doesn't mean for the youth of the ruling party we always agree on everything that they're saying. I've just highlighted some of the things we don't agree with. The cutting of budget of NSFAS, we don't agree with it, because the youth league, we are for free education. Now, NSFAS to us is an intervention. It is not a permanent solution. Now, when you cut the budget of intervention, it means you are reversing even the program of free education. But another issue that we need to speak about urgently, it is these councils, independent university councils, that every year they increase fees. Every year they increase registration fees. We always told them, scrap registration fees. Don't increase fees, because we are making it difficult for government to fund students. Because every time you increase fees, it means you have pushed back a student that was supposed to enter into that university, because the budget now, one person takes a budget of 3 people. Now, we're saying that everyone must partner with us, including these universities. And we've called upon the ministers and the ANC government that it is wrong also to have these independent universities who utilize their independence to exclude the youth of South Africa from accessing education.
So why not build more universities?
See, the issue here is not only about building more universities. The issue here is access. Because the moment you put systems in place that makes it impossible for the youth of South Africa to access the problem. The moment you increase fees every year, you are making it difficult for government to fund education in South Africa. Now, there are more TVETs that we're building. We're building TVETs. Instead, we're encouraging a lot of our youth to go to TVET colleges, because that's where they're going to get enough skills to respond to the economic demands of the country. We're encouraging the sitters to set up programs to push, because the biggest pushers of the economy in most cases are TVET colleges through the artisan programs and mineral programs. Now, I'm just saying that the biggest issue that we must unite on is the exclusion of the youth by these universities who have set independent councils who every year make it impossible for the youth to access education.
But also, of course, cutting budgets by the government also doesn't help.
We don't agree with that fully. We're not going to defend the cutting of budget. We hope that in the budget speech the minister will say something different, or we'll have to go to the union building urgently so the president acts on him. We're not going to have a minister who cuts budgets when we're in the middle of crisis of unemployed youth and high level of crime and all of those things. We don't agree with the cutting of budget at all.
That's one thing we can both agree on. Thank you
so
much.
Agree on everything.
Thank you so much for your time. That was Collen Malatji, ANC Youth League President.